Hey everybody, Glenn here, and I want to tell you about my other wrestling podcast. It's called the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show. Yeah, the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show. I do it solo, but I have about 100 episodes in the bank. A lot of interviews with Terry Funk, Jerry the King Lawler, Corey Graves, Sasha Banks, Kevin Owens, Dangerous Doug Gilbert, Booker T, just to name a few. So you can go back, listen to all our past interviews. And the show, yes, has been a little hiatus, but it's coming back strong. And my first episode back will be released this week. You can head over to podavenue.com/TIAWS or just follow us on Twitter at TIA Wrestling. Look forward to chatting with everybody each and every week on the This Is Awesome Wrestling Show.
The following show is a Pod Avenue production. You are cordially invited to have dinner with the King. Pull up a chair and join WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler and Glenn Moore. Enjoy.
Episode number 50, Dinner with the King. I'm Glenn Moore, joined here at the restaurant at King Jerry Lawler's Memphis Barbecue Company here in Memphis, Tennessee, having some barbecue, and I have an extra big platter of sausage and some ribs for episode number 50 of the podcast, King.
Did you say it's episode number 50?
50.
Those people over there are laughing. Why are they laughing about number 50? What's up with it?
I think the Carpenters are laughing. That's them.
Actually, somebody last week said that they liked the sound effects, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think
sound effect show.
Yeah, just don't overproduce the sound effects.
No, the only one I liked was the JR one.
Yeehaw! Yeehaw!
Did you like that?
I like that. So
that's not even JR. I mean, that's on a little sound effect machine. I'm sure that's not really JR.
No, I think anytime we bring up JR, you can play the sound effect.
Okay.
I think if we do certain things, you can do the sound effects. So have that handy. I don't know.
Anytime we bring up who?
Good old JR.
Okay, we got it. There you go.
I don't know why you brought it here at the table in the restaurant, but okay.
I just wanted to show it to you.
Well, you brought it last week.
Well, you saw it last week too, didn't you?
Yeah, you're gonna become that old guy that comes to the restaurant with all his little trinkets and gadgets and.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of the time we had. I was such a big fan of Leslie Nielsen and all of the Police Squad TV show
Naked
and all
Gun,
the Naked Gun movies and everything. I was such a huge fan. And remember when we had Leslie Nielsen on the show?
I do not remember that. No.
Oh yeah, he came and even what's his name, the big guy.
O.J. Simpson
was there. What? Who? No, not O.J. The other guy.
I forget his name. I know you're talking about his
you can see him in your mind, right? But anyway, yeah. But Leslie Nielsen, it was so great. He first of all, the first thing I remember was how short he was. He was just a little tiny guy, and then he had this like a miniature whoopee cushion.
George Kennedy.
Thing. You're right. It was George Kennedy, but. Anyway, but that didn't have anything to do with the little miniature whoopee cushion that Leslie Nielsen had. And every time to everybody, he had this little thing in his hand, and you'd walk up to him and they'd introduce you. They'd say, "Hey, this is Leslie Nielsen." He'd say, like, "Hey, Jerry, nice to meet you." And all of a sudden, it sounded like he would pass gas, right? And I thought that was the greatest. It was so realistic sounding, and you didn't see anything because it was just a little thing in his palm of his hand that he would squeeze. And he finally showed it to me, and I immediately went out and got one. He told me where you could get them. I immediately went out and got one. I've used it. I still have it to this day, and I've used it 1,000 times. But that was, and he would not let on to anybody that he wasn't really farting. The minute you met him, it was great.
Remember that one night, the first night I was in Memphis back in January, and I had to leave on short notice? Remember
what happened that night?
I was hoping you'd play the sound effect, but I had to go.
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember that night very well. But you weren't using a sound effects machine.
No, there was no sound effect machine going on from the.
That was some of that good old Southern, and not like here. It wasn't the barbecue. Oh, you know what? Maybe it was the barbecue beans. You think?
Probably. I forget which day. I think it was the first day, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we had to eat that day, but I wasn't feeling too well, and I had to rush back.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Back to the hotel. All right, let's move on. This is episode number 50 of the podcast, and we're gonna continue with the Do You Remember? And the King has some problem remembering certain things of his career, but I would say like 80% you do remember. So we're gonna continue it. I have some topics, but before we get into that, you teased it at the end of the show last week about the greatest Royal Rumble taking place next month in Saudi Arabia, and you and JR are going to be making the trip to do some commentary.
April 27th it's going to be, and it's going to be, I believe, on the network. It's going to be broadcast live nationwide throughout Saudi Arabia, and flying over, got all my flight details. One of which consists of a 10.5-hour flight. That's one of the flights. You got to take, I think, 3 different flights, or 2 different flights to get there.
Oh my goodness!
No, I'm going to take 3. One from Memphis to New York, New York to, I think it said Frankfurt, Germany, and then from Frankfurt to Saudi Arabia.
How long is your layover in Germany?
I do not know.
Oh boy!
I know.
And I know,
but I know one of them is a 10.5-hour flight, so that's not going to be a lot of fun.
First class, though, right?
Yes, thank goodness.
So, I mean, you said this is not a secret. We're not saying anything that's
no.
new.
Vince himself tweeted out about the fact that it's going to be the world's largest Royal Rumble.
Yeah,
50 participants in this Royal Rumble.
Now you'll be ringside with good old JR.
Yeah.
With good old JR.
Oh. I set it down over here. I'll be ringside with who?
Good old JR.
There you go. I'm sorry.
And
I think we just really forget about the.
Yeah.
I set it down over here by the salt and pepper, and so.
Well, I was waiting for it. It's like the what chance, you got to and give that pause. But there have been times when the King has been doing commentary for the Royal Rumble in January, and your music hits, and Jerry the King Lawler enters. Sometimes you're in there for a while. Sometimes you're in there for 5 seconds. But
right.
Are you going to be in the greatest Royal Rumble?
Well, that would be a surprise.
Right.
But one of the things that makes it, to me at least, appear more possible than before is the fact that, hey, we just saw Daniel Bryan has been, what do they call it when?
Medically cleared?
Medically cleared. There you go. Yeah. Is there a sound effect for medically cleared? No. Anyway, I think when you found out you're medically cleared, you do this. You take off and head for the ring.
Head for the ring.
Which, as a matter of fact, Daniel Bryan did Monday night, didn't he?
Tuesday.
Or Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about both of those nights. Monday night with what we found out about The Undertaker, and then, of course, Daniel Bryan is now cleared. And his first night back after being cleared, I don't know, man, he took some abuse.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations when you watch him, Daniel was never the biggest guy in the WWE anyway, and I'm not saying that he looks fragile, but when you it just, to me, I seemed overly concerned about his health, and I think that's what happens when with the fans, and I think that's what happens with the WWE. They just feel like the fans are going to be sitting there on the edge of their seat thinking, oh my gosh, any second now this guy could be re-injured or whatever. And I really think that's what they think about me. They think that when I'm in the ring, any second I could drop over dead with another cardiac arrest or something. So, but my situation was different. Everybody and 99.9% of the people say, oh, it was a heart attack, which was just not. It's cardiac arrest and heart attack are 2 different things, and honestly, I don't even, there was no warning to mine because I got other than the 10 elbows from Dolph Ziggler, that was a little bit of a warning sign. But then when it happened, when your heart just stops beating, boom, you just black out. You're just don't know what happens until, fortunately, if you wake up again, if they are able, as they were in my case up there in Montreal, got immediate attention. and they were with the CPR, and then 22 minutes later they had the paddles and shocked my heart and started it back up again. But fortunately, with the great CPR job that Doc Sampson did and the paramedics there in Montreal, it was like the minute my heart started back, I was just the same as I was before that had happened. And I feel like it was the elbow drops that kind of knocked it out of rhythm and caused it to seize up and stop. So it's not like, even though that happened, I don't feel like I have a medical history of heart problems.
Right.
That was something that was kind of caused. And so, I feel, and I would really want to go back sometime. We're going on 6 years ago that happened. And I would bet I've wrestled.
I mean, it was like, well, how many months after, 6 months after you had your first match after the cardiac arrest?
Yeah.
So you say
and
about,
I was going to say, I bet I've
years?
wrestled 500 matches since that.
Jeez.
Just not in the WWE.
And
I wrestled just this past Saturday. I had basically a triple shot. I got up like 6 o'clock in the morning, headed up to Dyersburg, Tennessee, which is it's another city. It's not like a suburb of Memphis, but it's about 75 miles from Memphis. Headed up Dyersburg. They had a Comic Con, one day long Saturday Comic Con. I did the Comic Con, started signing at 9 o'clock for the early bird VIP people that bought their early bird tickets. So we started signing at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Went until 5 p.m. signing all day. And then at 5 p.m. we took a little break, got something to eat, and went over and wrestled in the second match of a card there in Dyersburg. They have a local wrestling promotion there. Wrestled on the second match there against Matt Riviera, and then jumped in my car. That match was over probably at about, 8:15 or something like that. Jumped in my car and drove back towards Memphis, stopped in a little town called Covington, where we did a benefit show for the Crestview Middle School. We do it once a year for their athletic program. And so came there and wrestled in the main event there against Dangerous Doug Gilbert. So I did a double shot just as recent as this past Saturday, and wrestled the night before in Ripley, Tennessee. So it's, I still wrestle a lot, but just not in the WWE.
And you wrestle, outside the WWE because you're on your own accord. If something happens to you in that ring, that's all no responsibility of WWE, even though you are officially a talent. Would there, I'm not, I know you know about Daniel Bryan and the the workings behind the scenes with what's going on, but would WWE ever agree to something like, okay, liability, okay, Daniel, you can come back, but if something happens, we're not liable? Would they do something like that, or is that just not something they practice at all?
Oh, I really can't speak for them because I don't know. But if you just ask me what my opinion would be, right, I would say no, that they, once they clear him and say, as far as the company's concerned, you're medically cleared to come back, then I think they would take responsibility if something did happen to him again in the ring. Yeah. They're not there. They're not like cold and heartless in that respect, Right, because he is a big name, on the indie scene. Oh my gosh! Did you see the response that he was getting there Tuesday night? It's amazing.
It was awesome to see. But he is a big name, and his contract is up in September. He's made it known through interviews or hinted towards that he wants to wrestle again, obviously. So you would think that if he was underneath no WWE umbrella, end of September, that he would go off and wrestle the indie scene with Ring of Honor or whoever wanted him to wrestle. So I think it was more maybe WWE feeling the pressure, like, hey, he is a big name. Let's give him a chance to get medically cleared and then bring him back. I agree. I agree 100%. Of course, it was a business decision, as are the decisions that they make about who gets medically cleared or not. It's all about the the liability or the responsibility, and they just I think they sat down and said, let's weigh the two here, and which one are we taking the greater risk at? And I think they've really realized that the greater risk was of losing a talent like Daniel Bryan, because as you said, I think Daniel's mind was made up that he was going to wrestle again, whether it be in the WWE or not be. So I guess the WWE said, heck, we don't want to lose this guy. And I think they made the right decision. And I think Daniel put up a big enough stink about it to not force them, but to give them the option. Okay, well, if you go to these X amount of doctors and they clear you, we'll clear you overall. And I think with you, and you talked about this when we talked about what happened that day, and if you're going to wrestle again in WWE, is that if you walked into Vince's office and said, "Hey, I want to wrestle," and you kind of nugged your ear a little bit, that maybe the possibility would be open. But you're not doing that probably as much as Daniel Bryan did.
No, I've never done it at all. I think obviously that there's more that goes into the decision to use me rather than Daniel Bryan is the age factor. I don't think they probably wouldn't be using me to wrestle even if I had never even had the cardiac arrest, simply because of the age. It's a all young guys situation now.
Yeah, and 6 years have passed since even that match.
Yeah. So
but people that are a big fan of yours and fan of wrestling history in general would love to see you. Even in a Rumble match or a Battle Royal or the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal that they do at WrestleMania. There's something to where, okay, you're not taking that many maybe big spots or taking a lot of bumps, but you're still being involved and you're still on TV. You're still being seen on TV.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that there are fans out there that still remember my in-ring career there in the WWE. But you got to also understand that is not the WWE's target audience. Those fans, the fans that are the WWE's target audience don't remember me wrestling in the ring. And a lot of them, probably the majority of them, would look at how the fans are, and especially the ones that are vocal on social media. They look at somebody when the WWE brings back somebody that's got any history or any age on them, as those guys are like taking up or taking away from or a spot that the younger talent deserves. Which is silly. I mean, if you got the talent, you got the ability, you're going to eventually get your shot, and sometimes in the WWE, and sometimes you're much better off waiting till the time is right rather than being rushed in when you think you're ready. But I don't worry about things like that. If something like that were to come along, great, it'd be fun and it'd be exciting, to be involved in something like the Royal Rumble, especially the world's biggest Royal Rumble that's going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia. That would be like another notch in your belt, something you could be proud of in your career. But I don't sit around worrying about it. Believe me.
Yeah, but you will be ringside for the greatest Royal Rumble ever. 50 competitors in Saudi Arabia, broadcast on the network. Is it? Yeah. No.
It's going to be on the network. Okay. and national. It's going to be like the Super Bowl is here in the United States over in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And me and good old JR are going to be reunited. Yeehaw! I can't wait.
Here's a legit question, and I don't know the answer, and I'm not. My machine is acting up on me here in front of me at the Restaurant King. Can women wrestle in Saudi Arabia or no?
Oh no. No, that would be a no. But you know what? I did see it's so coincidental. I think it was 60 Minutes I was watching the other night, and there was a segment on there about how they're trying to change things. It was, women can't even, not only could they not wrestle on a show there, they can't even drive in Saudi Arabia. Women are not allowed to drive cars. They were showing this segment the other night about how they're doing classes now. They're really trying to change things. For instance, the sheiks that spoke with Vince McMahon about bringing the show over there.
Iron Sheik?
Not the Iron Sheik, no, not the original Sheik, Eddie Farhat. None of those guys. Okay. But these gentlemen are. I don't know if they would say more westernized Saudi Arabia, but I think more modernize and bring things, into the more like they are in the rest of the world. The old set in stone ways of things like, women not being allowed to show their face or to drive, those kind of things. Those were old religious laws and that sort of thing that were brought in when they had guys like the Ayatollah and all of these old religious people, you know, that were so set in their ways and that sort of thing. And they're really trying to change that and modernize that now. I did get a list. I wish I had it here in front of me. I did get a list of things that you have to sign this document before you go to Saudi Arabia that it says, you know, you will honor and abide by the customs of the country of Saudi Arabia. And of course, that means, you know, right now the things about women. And it means, of course, one of the things it said in there, it said that any illegal drugs could result in the death penalty.
Oh, my goodness.
Smuggling illegal drugs into Saudi Arabia could result in the death penalty.
Well, it's a good thing Enzo Amore isn't with WWE anymore, huh?
I don't know.
Just kidding.
I'm telling you, I wouldn't even take an aspirin over there.
It wasn't there. Didn't Chris Jericho, not in Saudi Arabia, but in a foreign country, disrespect the flag or something, and he got in trouble, or he was going to get arrested or something? I forget the story. But I know there was a time overseas that Chris Jericho did something that was, you know, in that country was very disrespectful, and he was going to get in trouble. But they said, you know, it's part of the show. It's, you know, it's. But
I honestly, I don't remember anything with Chris Jericho. It seems like JBL was telling me the story one time that that he was wrestling in Germany, and he did some sort of thing, you know, that would I don't know if it was the Heil Hitler thing or marching like goose step type marching, you know, that the German soldiers used to do back in World War, but something that was, you know, not politically correct in these days and time. And I think he got in a little trouble, I believe, but I'm almost certain that was JBL that told me that story. Well, I don't remember anything about Chris Jericho.
Well, here's a I found it online. My computer got back up. Chris Jericho, he crumbled up the Brazilian flag, and the authorities, local law enforcement, said that he could face up to charges, or he'll be okay if he public apologized. And then he later went back in the ring, grabbed the mic, and said he was sorry. He apologized, and the match was allowed to continue. So the actual
that's just one of those situations where, you know, you in Chris Jericho's case, I'm thinking, you know, he's trying to make the fans. I'm sure he was the heel or whatever in that match, so he's trying to make the fans dislike him. And in our country, you know, where you had the freedom to do absolutely anything you want. And I'm sure he thought that was a cheap way to kind of get some heat. And then you don't always know, and you don't always. I mean, that's why they sent this warning letter, you know, with Saudi Arabia thing. You are to abide by and respect the ways and customs of their country, the country that you're visiting. So I'm sure that once Chris and the WWE realized how insulting that was in what country was it? Brazil?
Brazil, yeah.
Yeah, in Brazil. The proper thing was then to do, and what I'm sure he had to do was go out and apologize.
Could you imagine?
But I mean, that's something that's not meant to. I mean, it's meant to intentionally try to make the people dislike you or be mad at you, and during that match. But I mean, he didn't mean anything serious by that.
There's a time when Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were feuding, and Shawn was ringside with a Canadian flag, and he put it up his nose, and he was picking his nose with the flag. Way back in the mid-'90s, that was that. Or he took the Canadian flag and he was humping it in the ring.
Okay, let's go.
Geez,
wait a minute.
Shawn did a lot. But no, so you are looking forward to going to Saudi Arabia for the greatest Royal Rumble. That would be in the network.
I am really looking forward to the experience. I'm not looking forward to the trip.
Yeah, travel.
That's travel. Ooh.
Well, wouldn't it just be nice to click to snap your fingers and you're instantly where you need to be? Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, that would be so great. What's that called? Teleportation or something?
Yeah. Well, they're working on it, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So
the only time I ever saw somebody try to the only thing I remember working on that was the movie The Fly.
The Fly. Oh, we'll love The Fly.
Remember that?
Jeff Goldblum. That was a great movie.
Oh, you remember the later Fly? I remember the old original one with. You got to go back and watch the old original one with Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one. I've just seen the more recent one.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum was going. Gina Davis. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch the older one All right, so
the old one with Vincent Price it was really good, but it was, of course, not as back in that day, not as gory as the later one with Jeff Goldblum, but it was very, very good.
So Daniel Bryan, we talked about a little bit about it, but what do you think we're looking at here? Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens
at the WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that's what they're looking to do.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't get why they keep putting Shane in matches at WrestleMania, but okay.
He's Shane McMahon. Come on.
I know, but you're taking away from the other guys.
See, there you go. I read somewhere. This makes me a little hot too. I read somewhere the other day. I guess. Just like I got called by last week, the WWE called me up and said, they're different media outlets all over the country are asking for interviews and want to talk about WrestleMania. And I got a call the other day from the WWE, and they said Alabama.com.
Oh yeah.
I guess it's some kind of media outlet for the entire state of Alabama. And so they lined me up to do this interview with this gentleman from Alabama.com. We stayed on the phone for like an hour talking about, and the crazy thing is, we'll talk a little bit about WrestleMania, and then the next thing you know, the subject gets turned to Andy Kaufman, and I have to explain once again the entire Andy Kaufman saga to this guy with Alabama.com. But it was a good interview, and I kept bringing it back to things like doing the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania, and I would love to see Andy Kaufman in the WWE Hall of Fame someday. But the reason I'm saying this is because I read somewhere online that Michael Cole did an interview with somebody, and I'm sure they had Michael doing interviews about WrestleMania as well. And I guess they asked him about our match, and he said it was probably the worst match in WrestleMania history.
Oh.
Can you imagine that? He said he loved it and he had fun, but he I guess he's just trying to, I don't know. I don't know what he's trying to do. Why would you say that you were involved in the worst match in WrestleMania history? I'm sure that was not the worst match in WrestleMania history.
Moving on, King.
I've gone back and watched it a bunch of times. It was not that horrible.
Well,
you don't even remember it.
I do remember it, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I'm looking at that match, I am looking at I have in my mind a template of what a Jerry the King Lawler match should be. So when I have that in my mind of watching all who Jerry the King Lawler is in Memphis and around the world, not WWE Jerry the King Lawler, it turns out to be, I'll be honest, a disappointment.
Well, yeah, it was. There were certainly things wrong with it that made it disappointing.
Just because I think because you deserve better.
It was way too long,
right?
Which tends to make people remember it as, that was the worst match in WrestleMania history. But I'm sure that's part of what makes Michael Cole think that, because Michael Cole was completely blown up, as we call it in the business. completely out of breath and out of shape and completely winded, like 2 minutes into the match, and the thing lasted like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it had the opportunity to be really good, and I still look back on it. I don't hold anything against Dean Malenko, but Dean Malenko was our agent on that, who helped us. Helped us lay out the match. Michael or I didn't really have any, say so or involvement really in what went on in there. But we had the possibility of it being a great match. When you got Stone Cold Steve Austin as a special referee, and they just didn't utilize him at all in the match, not at all. and then you had. Had the what's his guy?
Jack Swagger.
Yeah, Jack Swagger in Michael Cole's corner. Good grief, we had all the elements. Even though, and of course, it was the first time Michael Cole had been in a ring in any kind of a match scenario ever in his life. So that was, you had that going against you, but you had Jack Swagger and you had Stone Cold Steve Austin to offset that. There's so much more we could have done in that match that would have made it more entertaining. But the way it played out was it was just like left to Michael Cole had me down, like you said, and that's not something that you would expect. But he had the upper hand in most of the match, and that just, you're right, it's just not the way it should have been. It could have been a lot better, but I still don't think it was the worst match ever in history.
I've been watching some past WrestleManias, and I'll have to go back to watch maybe the early ones, but I think the Snooki match was not that good.
No, good grief, of course not.
So if you're not better than Snooki, then there's a problem.
Right.
But I think it was better than Rock Hogan at WrestleMania 18, though.
Oh, my gosh.
No, I'm kidding.
What a lot of talk about that lately, huh? Well, I guess it was just the anniversary of that or something.
Yeah, anniversary, when WrestleMania used to be halfway through March. I was there in Toronto.
You were not. You were in Toronto?
I was in college at Toledo and made the drive from Toledo all the way to Toronto. Got there an hour before the show and then left right after.
Well, I sent out a tweet, said, I've been asked a ton of times, what was the best match that you ever remember calling? And I think me and good old JR have, me and good old JR have agreed many times that that match at WrestleMania 18 with The Rock and Hulk Hogan was probably the best.
Yeah,
just everything that went on. There's just the I don't know, the feeling from the fans, the whole situation. It was just I've never been involved in one like it since.
I found 2 tickets on eBay for $50 each a week before the event. Bought them up. Said I was going to make the drive. Went with my girlfriend at the time, and we drove all the way to Toronto.
You got tickets to WrestleMania for $50 a piece?
Yeah, it was the first row of the upper deck, and it was like opposite of the stage. So I had a perfect view, and it was the best WrestleMania I've been to. Yeah, definitely. I've been to the last 6 of them. So yeah, I love that was probably the best match I've ever seen live in person. But that was a truly great night. But no, I don't think anything compares to that match. But yeah, I don't think yours is the worst ever. I'm sure the Snooki match was not good.
And I'm sure there were some matches just like, I think that in the past, and I'm going back to we're talking a long time ago when you're talking about WrestleMania 18. Yeah. So, but, between WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 18 and all the way up till now in the 30s, it's like now it's just like it mirrors society. Everything got to be bigger, and bigger means better and that sort of thing. So, and now every single match on a WrestleMania card has to have some great deal of importance. I mean, that's just what's expected now. It wasn't always that way. So back in the early days of WrestleMania, there were maybe one, and sometimes just the big main event was the what you sold WrestleMania about. And there were some matches that were kind of just filler matches, so to speak, in some of the early WrestleManias that they did because they didn't concentrate on that. They concentrated on a couple of big, huge matches for WrestleMania. So I'm sure that somewhere along those 30-plus WrestleManias, there's got to have been a match that was worse than mine and Michael Cole's.
I'll find it. I'll watch some old WrestleManias.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
I'll find
do your research.
I'll do my research. If you're a WWE wrestler, I mean, your payday for that match was. We talked about it before. Your payday for your match was the biggest of your career. Yes. But if you are a WWE wrestler, does it matter when it comes to payday if you're on the pre-show match or the main show match? Oh,
absolutely, absolutely.
Even with a network nowadays, and
yes.
people buying less DVDs and Blu-rays, the payout is structured. How is the payout structured? On the higher the match goes on the card, the more money you get, then, or what?
Yeah, I mean, and that is something that is left. I mean, I always. That was part of the job that I hated when I was doing booking in our Memphis territory. You're the guy that's responsible for who gets paid what. You have this big pool of money at the end of the day, or sometimes it wasn't always a big pool of money in our case, but you had to. Then it was up to you, and I would say that probably Vince McMahon is the final say so. and it's in his mind as to what he feels was it goes by, I think, the importance of the match to the show. I mean, I hope you didn't think that, like, somebody on the opening match of, well, of course, I mean, now that's another thing. Now, you don't really know, in the fact that they try to make every match big and seem as important. So it's not like back in the day, it used to be the opening match. There was a great deal of disproportion in the pay scale from the opening match to the main event. Of course, in WrestleMania, the match the match you might consider the main event might be on second or third. So, it's just the way it goes. But that the guys that are in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal are not going to get paid as much as the people that are in the Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle match, or the match that the John Cena match and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, it's definitely a different pay grade throughout WrestleMania.
Right. And there's a lot of people on Twitter, social media, saying, Randy Orton, the United States title match could be a pre-show. And people are saying, well, I don't think Triple H or Vince would put Randy Orton on the pre-show. I mean, this guy has been, he's been a staple in the company for close to 15 years, and I'm sure they want to give him a pre-show pay for being a veteran. So that match probably will not be on the pre-show just because you want to pay him. Respectable.
But once again, like I said, that doesn't necessarily, just being on the pre-show doesn't necessarily in this day and time determine your pay is going to be determined by that individual, who I think is probably Vince McMahon, and the decision to put certain matches on the pre-show is made by not because of certainly the lack of importance of the match, because a lot of times they definitely want to put an important match on the pre-show. Do you realize that more people watch the pre-show? More people, many millions of people more see the actual pre-show than see the actual pay-per-views.
No.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, what do you overall, like, not on the network, but YouTube, and because they are broadcasting on Facebook.
The pre-show is seen on so many more formats than the pay-per-view. I mean, it's available to millions and millions of more people than if you're just watching, than just the people that have the network.
So you're saying that Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie will be on the pre-show because more eyes can see it.
No, absolutely not.
I know, I'm kidding.
No, but the pre-show is a commercial to get you to buy the pay-per-view and get you to get the network.
Right. Are you going to be doing any pre-show for WrestleMania?
Yes, I'm definitely doing 1 hour of the pre-show of WrestleMania pre-show.
Are you going to do a match too?
No, I would definitely say no.
You're not, not wrestling, but broadcasting.
Oh, that I don't know. Hopefully, yeah, probably so.
That's good. One match that I know you were putting an eye on Monday, watching Raw while you were texting back and forth, was a possibility of a John Cena Undertaker match.
John Cena. And
we saw Cena calling the Undertaker a wuss. Was calling him old. It was basically calling him out. And when he got was Kane. Kane came out, choke slammed him. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to see this happen. But that would be one match you would love to call an Undertaker Cena match.
Oh my goodness, yeah. We talked about this last week about, and you would love to see it too, but you would love to see a different form of the Undertaker. You'd like to see the American Badass, right?
Big Evil, or Big Red.
I was telling you, my son Kevin called me up after listening to last week's podcast, and he loves to criticize. He's the biggest critic sitting out there. He loves to find us making any kind of mistake and tell me about it, and he a couple of things he reminded me. I think maybe somewhere last week, and this was probably my mistake, because I did not. It slipped my mind in the fact that when we talked about the Undertaker coming back as the American Badass, I thought, well, that could happen, because the last time we saw the Undertaker at WrestleMania, he took his gear off and his hat and his gloves and the coat and everything and piled them nicely in the center of the ring. And so, we wouldn't necessarily have to see that Undertaker come back. It could be he could come back as the biker or the badass guy. But then my son Kevin reminded me that, we've already seen The Undertaker at the Raw anniversary,
right,
25th anniversary, as the old Undertaker. And I went, oh, yes, you're right. I hate it when he's right about something like that. And the other thing he reminded me, we talked about the fact that Kid Rock is going into the Hall of Fame. And you said, it'd be great to see The Undertaker come riding out to the Kid Rock song, which is, of course, American Badass, right? Mm-hmm. And then Kevin said, and anyway, he said Undertaker came out to music, a song by Limp Bizkit. Now, what do you have to say to that? Is he right there or not?
He did.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, does that sound effect?
No, it wasn't a sound effect.
Is that me prepping for my answer?
Yes.
Doing some vocal exercises. No, he did come out with Limp Bizkit, rolling. Keep rolling. He did come out to that for a good majority of the time when he was Biker Taker. But he did come out as American Badass, which is by Kid Rock. So he came out to both at different times of that stint. So Kevin, I'm sorry, you were wrong. He did come out to a Kid Rock song.
Well, he was half wrong and half right.
Because I have the theme right here.
Did come out to a Limp Bizkit song, right?
Yeah.
Are you scared?
This is the Kid. Yeah. So that's the Undertaker's. That was the Undertaker's theme. So that comes out to Kid Rock. I don't want to get copyright on the podcast because we can't be playing Kid Rock's theme. But yeah,
trouble.
So you get big trouble. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, playing someone else's content. How do you like it when someone sells Memphis wrestling DVDs?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Or puts your face on a T-shirt.
Yeah, but this is sort of like we're not doing that in the sense of entertainment. We're doing that this is almost like a news broadcast.
Yeah, there's a fine line with fair use. People actually re-upload the show onto their YouTube channel.
What?
Yeah, people steal
some girl just some girl just started feeling sexy when I said what?
Well, speaking of that person, he wants to send proof.
Yeah, I don't think that's
video proof. I'll do the research for you.
I figured you would.
I'll do the research for you. But no, so yeah, people actually re-upload the show or parts of the show, and then they try to sell it off as their own content. That's not right. That's you can't do that. But I guess if we are doing it as part of a show and we're talking about it like a newsworthy thing, I guess we can use it. But there is a fine line of fair use. It's
let's don't risk it. We don't want
right.
that financial liability.
Okay. But here's the thing, Kevin, you were half wrong. He did come out to both at different points of his career.
Well, there you go.
So that's why I'm hoping Kid Rock will come out to sing American Badass. American Badass, and have Biker Taker come back. That would be great. But we haven't know because Kane came out and chokeslammed John Cena.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Well, I think we do know, but
yeah, just another. I like that build up as well too. I like this 2 weeks in a row. I really enjoyed John Cena's interviews.
Yeah, his promos are great.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens next week. Next week, Raw is in Cleveland.
Oh.
So that means...
Guess who's going to get hit up for tickets?
Jerry the King. I'm pretty sure you probably already are.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends up there that my believe it or not, my insurance man that I have with New York Life, Rocky Neal, he lives in Cleveland, and every time we're there, I have to hook Rocky up. And then also my good friend Brad Mellon with the Cleveland Browns, equipment manager.
Well, Brad hooks you up with a lot of stuff. So, I mean,
oh, my gosh, Brad is the best.
Yeah, Brad's great.
The best contact you could have with a football team. The Cleveland Browns, he's the greatest. And he sometimes likes to go if he's not otherwise engaged in something. But and then he'll usually grab up some of the guys. Is it time for them? Are they are any of the Browns in Berea up there, Ohio, doing anything? Some of the guys work out year round, right?
Yeah, some guys work out year round, but I think this is a lull point. With the draft coming up, there's not really much activity going on with players in Cleveland.
Speaking of that, What are the Browns? What are the Browns going to do? Oh, speaking of that, tell me about Joe Thomas.
Yeah, I talked to Joe.
Joe Thomas is, of course, the legendary Cleveland Brown offensive lineman who has just announced his retirement this past week. After, how many snaps was it? How many straight games and snaps did he play without missing a snap?
Oh, it was over 10,000.
Over 10,000, right?
Yeah, over 10,000.
Unbelievable. What an Iron Man this guy is. But he's finally announced his retirement. I saw him do his retirement speech, and you could tell by how much weight he's dropped that he's getting into that TV commentating mode. Yeah. He's getting that look about him. And I think that's probably what we're going to see Joe doing in the near future. But so you got a chance to speak to him because he follows us on Twitter, and I know Joe's a wrestling fan as well.
Yeah, I DM'd him, and he responded that he would love to come on the podcast. And once everything kind of dies down in the coming couple months, that we'll set up a time for Joe Thomas to come on. So I know not a lot of wrestling fans probably know who Joe Thomas is, but this is Jerry the King Lawler's podcast. You have any guess he won't?
Yeah, right.
So, Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas would be great. Future Hall of Famer for sure.
Yes, sir.
So it'd be great to have him.
I think we fall into the not trap or anything, but every time I think of a guest or somebody that we could have on the show, I'm naturally always thinking wrestling related. But we don't have to be boxed into everything having to be about wrestling, do we? The case in point, I look at Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has. I look for him to call his mailman in one day and sit down and have him on his podcast. It's like Chris has all kinds of different individuals on, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's great. He has two podcasts. He has one that's wrestling centric, and then he has one where he interviews rock stars to ghost hunters to just any like you said, he could bring his mailman off the street and have an entertaining hour podcast. But yeah, he's a busy man. Speaking of Chris Jericho, he'll be in Cleveland. Fozzy, his band will be in Cleveland. First week of April. So
and speaking of Chris Jericho, he's got me along. He's got a ton of different guests, music guests,
you and who else?
Guests. Me and good old JR. Yeehaw! We are both going to be guests and host his big cruise, the Jer Cruise, that's coming up in October of this year, and we're going to be going on a cruise, Lauren and I, for the first time ever. Never gone on a cruise before. And so we're going to be part of the big Chris Jericho cruise that's coming up in October. He's got tons of guests that are going to be going on there. So you can check that out. Follow Chris Jericho on Twitter, and he's always tweeting about it, and I'm retweeting stuff about it. So you get the information and come and be a part of that cruise. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey, this is Chris Jericho inviting you to the first ever rock and wrestling rager at sea. Picture this: rock and roll, wrestling, comedy, live podcasting, all on the open ocean from October 27th to the 31st, 2018, from Miami to Nassau. I'm bringing Hall of Fame wrestlers, some of the greatest rock and roll bands on the planet, and putting the first wrestling ring on a cruise ship ever. Don't be a stupid idiot. Make the list. Check us out at ChrisJerichoCruise.com.
Well, it sounds like a great time, King. I don't know if I can make it, but
you know what? When I look at you,
I'm very buoyant.
I get the feeling that,
I'm very buoyant.
Oh, are you? No, I would just get the feeling that you might not. I don't know. How you would handle turbulence on a boat, if you would get seasick.
Oh no, I love turbulence on a plane. When it gets turbulence, yeah. I love it. I love the rocky ride.
You do not.
Oh, I love it. No, when there's turbulence and people are freaking out like they're going to die, I'm sitting there on the roller coaster going up and down. It's great. I love it.
Jeez.
I'm like, bring out more turbulence. I love it. No, I'll be great on a boat. I don't get sick. I don't get scared of many things. I would have a good time. But I mean that.
We may work it out. But it would be cool because we could do a podcast from Chris Jericho's cruise.
Yeah. Well, I've heard the horror stories of cruise ships, though. People. No. Do you know how many billions of people go on cruises that have just wonderful times? What if you get? The only
time you hear about something is when it's the few that have something go wrong.
What if you have Somalian pirates try to take over the cruise ship?
Somalian pirates.
That'd be the raw cruise ship to pirate. Have all these wrestlers. And
Oh my goodness.
Chris Jericho, Jerry the King
What do you
Lawler.
think good old JR would say about that? There's some pirates out there. Come on. Me and good old JR would fight them off. I guarantee you. No pirate, not going to let any pirates take over.
All right, King, I think we discussed plenty of topics, well, current event topics for this week's show for episode number 50. Any final words, or you want to plug what we're going to be doing this weekend?
Well, yeah, everybody out in the Anaheim, California area, probably going to be, you can come and see me tomorrow, let's see, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. That's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, Thursday, all day.
Yeah, I'll be appearing at Disneyland.
Oh, really? Disneyland.
Yeah, Lauren and I are going to go to Disneyland tomorrow. And then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'll be at the WonderCon in Anaheim, California, at the Anaheim Convention Center. And it's going to be out there with my buddy Mike Kingston and Headlock Comics. And we're going to be signing some autographs, taking some pictures, and doing some commissioned sketches and all that sort of stuff this weekend. That's what we got planned. The WonderCon.
Oh, you're not signing at Disney.
Well, I'm sure I'll be signing my credit card bill. Oh my gosh, do you know how much it costs to get into Disneyland now? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean I was going to plan on it during Orlando, and the cost deterred me from doing that because it was so much to even go to one, let alone 3 different parks in Orlando.
It's crazy, and they're just Disneyland and Disney World stay packed all the time. It's like they just can. I don't know how people do it. It's just they just keep raising the prices there.
Well, I hope.
But it's Disneyland, and Disneyland. We've only been to Disneyland once, so that's where it all started. It's a really nostalgic feeling when you get to walk through there and realize, Walt Disney himself actually walked these streets and had a hand in putting that all together. Disney World, of course, he passed away before that was finished, but Disneyland's his baby.
Really quick, I was just researching while you were talking some WrestleMania matches that were terrible.
Oh boy.
And
okay.
A lot of people would say that yours is not the worst.
Oh, good.
Maybe
I'm one of those people.
Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more next week, but just really quick, Bret Hart versus Vince at WrestleMania 26 was worse. A lot of people say. Uncle Elmer and Adrian Adonis at WrestleMania 2.
Oh no, Uncle Elmer, Playboy Frazier.
They said it was terrible. Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9, and Honky Tonk Man versus Brutus Beefcake at WrestleMania 4.
Well, you know what's good is the fact that there's big names associated with some of the matches that people consider the worst in WrestleMania history. Yeah. So that doesn't make me feel bad.
So you made it.
I made the list, right? That's not the Chris Jericho list.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more next week since we get closer to WrestleMania, and you're not even in the top 10.
Really?
Yeah, there's a top 10 list. Doesn't even mention your match with Cole. So we'll talk more about that. Maybe some WrestleMania stuff next week. Any final words?
No, other than thanks for paying the tab today. That's awesome.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. I still owe $10 since my.
For what?
Wait a minute. I forgot my card, so I only had cash. So if you could pick up the tip up and the rest of the rent, I really appreciate that. No, I'm just kidding. It's all paid for, King. You're allowed to go. No washing dishes.
I appreciate that. And I got one final word from good old JR. Yeehaw! And that is it.
The preceding show is a Pod Avenue production.